It ain't the Six Nations until Nacho Brex has had a say. And that took us merely, 7 minutes for him to put in a lovely little grubber and Louis Liner to score Italy's first try of the tournament. And Italy, in the process, to get their first win.
Yes, very exciting. The Brex Nations is back. It's kicked off in style. And interestingly, that Italian win just, in a way, felt like business, not as usual, but that was a win that they just kind of needed and deserved. And in a way, this is almost like the best shit game of rugby I've ever seen. Yeah. Because the weather conditions, obviously, were a factor. And they ruined a lot of players' chances of catching the ball. Some would say they ruined the Scottish line-out. Some would say Scotland ruined their own line-out. They made the game difficult to play for a lot, but Italy responded much better.
Italy were the better team.
Yes.
By a much greater margin than 3 points.
Yes.
This was a game they should have won comfortably. I think the heavens opened and they kind of resulted to more of a tight game. Italy were the better team throughout, and yet I never felt comfortable they were going to win necessarily.
I know what you mean.
Because Scotland have so many good players in their team, right? At no point when they are within 2 scores can you count a team who has Finn Russell, Darcy Graham's just come off the bench, Jamie Dobie's in the form he's in, Kyle Staines in the form they're in. Their pack are very reliable and very decent. That team can produce moments out of nowhere. If Italy turn off for 3 minutes, they switch off for 3 to 5 minutes, Scotland could win that game. And Italy didn't. They didn't. They remained switched on the entire game. They remained on it. This is a game I think Italy have been learning how to win for about 5 years now. They've been building towards this exact performance, right? And they picked up some wins along the way, whether it's Capeluzzo creating that try against Wales, a bit of luck going their way in the final play and they win the game, or whether it is them beating Wales and it feeling like a regulation win last year, or them beating Scotland the year before, and again, them just being reliable games, right? This was a different proposition, which was they're put in a challenge. They're put in a difficult game where even the great Italian teams we've seen down the years have so often slipped up and given that game away at the end. Yeah. And they had to rely on the game management, their scrum, their set piece, their kicking game to win this, and not just the flair and the execution and the flashy tries that we've got used to seeing and get so excited about watching. The likes of Ioane and Manicello and so on playing. They had to rely on the tough stuff. And they did it.
The thing that's best about this Scottish team, and we'll get into some specifics on this later on, the best thing about the Scottish team is the team sheet. Yeah. It is it's the list of 23 players that they name, and even some of the players that don't make the team. When you think about how Scotland sourced their tries, right? Italy gave away 3 penalties on the bounce, and they tap and go. Jack Dempsey makes a brilliant carry and gets over the try.
It's a superb step, this.
Yeah.
And I think they got lost in the shuffle an awful lot, but his little shift of weight, right as you've got Darge coming out the way, you've got Ashman on his outside, you've got several players that are going to be watching, and he changes just as he's catching the ball, gets off balance, bam, slides over. Ferrari's at fullback and can't stop him.
Yes, and Dempsey, who was outstanding.
He was brilliant. He was Scotland's best player by a country margin. Roy Darge also had a good game, I think.
Yeah.
But you almost end the list there. People had objectively a good game and it wasn't a mixed bag.
And then the wee Georgie Horne try coming off, them piling 12 men into this maul, just Darcy Graham, Finn Russell and George Horne on their feet outside of the maul. And George Horne, a brilliant spot, sneak down the blind side, dives early using those conditions in his favour to get over the try line.
He is Glasgow's all-time top try scorer, right? And that is someone used to finishing. That is someone with those instincts core in their blood, which is why you bring him on, why you have that option there.
And both of those tries were scored in moments of the game where you kind of felt like Scotland weren't particularly in it, in a way. And I think that tells you everything you need to about how Scotland fought in this game, where, I think any Scotland fan watching this would agree, Scotland did not play well in that game. And yet, I think there was this feeling of because of the players they've got on the pitch, rather than necessarily their structures, which, again, we will talk about soon, they can score at any moment. This can happen. They've got those players, even if a lot of them were having quiet games.
So Italy were brilliant. Italy deserved it. Italy's game management was excellent. Italy's scrum was brilliant.
Yeah.
There's so much about Italy we can go on about, and we will in a moment.
Yes.
Right? We'll want to hype up Italy. But I want to get the Scotland talk out of the way.
Yeah.
Scotland were bad, man. If the weather didn't stop, you think there's a chance Italy just run away with that game. Yeah. They were the better team by such a margin.
They're painful to watch at times.
A different style of play. I want to throw some stats at you though.
Hit me.
So Gregor Townsend's game plan that he went into this game with, they executed. They did it correctly. And that is the worst thing you can say about Scotland. So Townsend had a game plan. You look back to 2024, right? And Scotland kicked more metres than any other team in the Six Nations that year. They were then bottom the following year. because there's been, and they've bottomed again so far this year off this round around, because there's been a big shift towards contestable kicking in order to create chaos, in order to win the ball back in the air, and then play to width, and then play to shape and structure and so on. That is Townsend Game's plan. That is why he dropped Dylan van der Merwe and Darcy Graham, Scotland's 2 top try scorers of all time, and put in Jamie Dobie, who's been playing unbelievably well for Glasgow, and Kyle Stayne, who's also been playing very well for Glasgow, but primarily is the best kick chaser in Europe. Like European club rugby, he is the most likely, percentage-wise, to win the ball back on a contestable kick chase.
Yeah, by a margin as well.
By a margin. Like, he is number 1.
And that's not just an opinion, that's stats.
That's stats. Like, he is the number 1 in Europe. And so that's a really useful weapon to have. And Townsend went, brilliant, we'll build a game plan around that. And so, look, here's the stats, right? So, Scotland box kicked 17 times, right? Majority of these were contestable, a handful went out on the full, whatever.
Sure.
Of those 17, 8 they won back.
Okay.
That's pretty much a 50-50 run, and that's before you take out the handful that are looking for touch, that are just looking long.
And that's good
like, you're
in
probably taking 4 or 5
pissing wet
off,
conditions
right?
as
Exactly.
well.
That is unbelievable. There's 26% of their total kicks they retained. And then there's also plenty of examples like this, where Italy win it back in the air, they get the tap back, but you still have Scottish players first there to dive on it. Like, their setup was really good around this, and even better in the second half. It was something that really tightened up, because Italy got to a few of those in the first half, and they really tightened up just getting to those scraps and picking up those scraps in the second half. And clearly that was the thing Gregor was targeting, was like, if we can close up shop here, if we can make sure we're retaining ball both sides, no matter who slaps it back, then we'll be okay, then we'll build on this. The problem was, it was very much like, you know the old meme, the old like, step 1, kick it, step 2, retain it, step 4, profit, then there's a question mark in the middle.
Yeah.
Like, that was how the Townsend game plan felt, because it felt like they had no idea what went in the middle.
So here's an example that really illustrates that for us. So Ben White puts in a brilliant kick here.
It's a really good kick.
Kyle Stayne, once again, is excellent in the air, wins it back. They go one more phase, and they go to compound this.
They have a chance to play here. This isn't necessarily a try-scoring opportunity, but they have more numbers on their feet than Italy. They can make 15, 20 yards if they play to width. There is no thought of that at all. You look at Finn Russell, he's not looking at it. He's standing behind Gilchrist going, okay, lads, you carry in, you smash up here. Someone's got to look at this and go, we play to width. There's no thought of it. There's no like entertaining the idea at all. They're only thinking, we set them and box kick again.
Yes, which is exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
And once again, Ben White puts a brilliant kick in the air, and Kyle Stayne wins it back once again. Now, at this one, they get quick ball. Ben White goes in there and he goes to fish the ball out, sends it to Finn Russell. Finn Russell then just kind of collides with Scott Cummings, who is not really sure where he wants to be in the attack. Scott Cummings, who's an outstanding player, one of the most experienced players that they have.
A British and Irish Lion.
Yes. Finn Russell just kind of collides with him, pauses, doesn't know where to go, and then there's nothing on. He just slings the ball back to Sione Tuipulotu, who...
And Grant Gilchrist gets in the way of that pass as well.
Yes,
like,
indeed.
That's a pass he's got to thread around his other second row.
Sione then runs the long way around, breaks a couple of tackles and goes forward because he's a really good player.
Yeah.
Because he's one of the best centres in the world. That's not a game plan.
No.
It's not a game plan to just have one of the best centres in the world and go, oh, well, maybe we'll just give the ball to him. And that's the thing. The first of those 2 kicks, obviously, they win it back. And I don't mind them going for a kick again afterwards. But clearly that wasn't their intention. They went for that kick again afterwards because nothing else was on. Because they decided they weren't going to go wide and see what they can give Dobie, what opportunity they can give him out wide. They then just went, okay, let's do the same thing again. And it's fine because it worked. And off the back of that, they didn't have a protocol of what we set off this. And it doesn't matter what that protocol is. The protocol might be you just kick the ball again and hope that they make a mistake. The protocol might be let's just sling it 2 passes wide. That's what a lot of teams used to do, slightly less now, but some teams
That
still
is the only thing we see. Like, Scotland won a couple of turnovers, and that was what they went to, was we throw 2 passes and we just see where we get to. Yet there's no ambition beyond that. There's no thought beyond that. There's no plan beyond that. And the only players who seem switched on to looking at this at all are Russell and Tuipulotu. And if either of them isn't looking or isn't paying attention, as is the case on that first one they regather, then nothing happens. Then nothing comes. The forwards are not setting into shape at all. Like, as you see from the fact that Cummings and Gilchrist literally get in Finn Russell's way, because they're expecting to run the same thing they did last time, just they're going to run a crash up, and then they'll kick it again, right?
Yeah.
That is all they're looking at. Like, Scotland only have half a game plan. Half of the game plan is really good in terms of their kick strategy, getting Kyle Stayne to chase. It's a simple bit. And then they're just expecting, like, oh yeah, well, France regathered those on Thursday night. And then they just, like, scored a bunch, and then they just, like, went to width.
They don't know what their principle is.
Yeah.
And again, is it get it to a decision maker? Is it get it to a big ball carrier so you can reset? Is it get it to somebody who's coming off the ball at pace? Just have something that is your
Yeah.
general principle so everyone can work around that. This example again, White puts in a really good kick, Scotland win the ball back, Ewan Ashman does really well on the floor to win this back, and Hugh Jones spots something's on the blind side, there's a bit of space here, he flashes round, Grant Gilchrist just in the way, and so Hugh Jones has to throw quite a shoddy pass, it ends up going into touch. And it's not just that Hugh Jones makes a bad decision here, or he makes a bad pass here. It's just that everyone's in the way of each other because clearly they haven't decided. Off turnover ball, this is what we do. And as a front five forward, if you know that that's your principle, you go, brilliant, we're going to let them do that. We're going to get out of the 9-10 channel.
I think that is, if you take Gilchrist out of the game, that is fine.
Yes.
They've clearly gone, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to overstack this blind side. We're going to bring Hugh Jones round, and he's going to come onto the ball and act as a playmaker. One of the only 2 involvements he seemed to have in the entire game.
Yeah, he was silent.
And yet, there is no clear image. The whole team don't seem to know this, right? So, again, the midfield know this. Finn, Sione, Hugh Jones. They know, maybe you've got, Tom Jordan at fullback. Maybe they know, okay, well, we'll try and overload the blind side and we'll play here. But instead, the forward pack aren't on the same page. So you've got this Scotland team, either they have no principles that they're not playing to, or they're not communicating that to the full side. And some of this can be rust, some of this can be picked up. And that example, I think, you might just have one player who's just being lazy.
It might be a one-off,
that
might be in the wrong position.
But those 2 on the regathered box kicks, and this happened all game long, and they're less obvious examples because here they had 2 overlaps in a row that they couldn't execute because they weren't set up properly. They weren't using their bodies properly. You look at they just expected the thing that France did on Thursday night to just happen, where they just regather the ball, they play to width and they score, But instead, you look at France and they have, Ramos is always out in the wide channels. He's looking and scanning. He's got Deportes running lines off him. You've got BLBRA out on the width. You've got Olivon as the kind of a forward who runs great support lines. He's left out deliberately. The whole thing is really carefully thought of and everyone knows where they're going. And they have likewise, this chance early, right, for France. Dupont regathers the ball and instantly just slings it wide because he knows our protocol is we get the ball to Ramos or Jalabert as one of the 2 key decision makers, and they look up and see what's on, and he sees Ramos is the first one there, bam, let's get it to width, right? Scotland don't have a plan like that. And I think it is. I think they're playing way too much off Finn Russell. They're too reliant on him to call shape. And so if he misses something, which he does in this case because he's human, right? And he's a brilliant player, but every now and again he's going to miss an overlap is on.
Yeah, he can't see everything because he's got to look at the ball when he's catching it.
They need to make sure that Tom Jordan in his wide channel is calling this and spotting this and going, oh, we've got a chance to play here and make 15, 20 metres at the very least.
It's something we talked about pretty much this time last year in the Six Nations. Scotland have, a potentially world-class backline at full strength, right? And one thing Scotland love to do is feed that backline. You can't criticise Scotland of never getting these guys the ball, the Darcy Grahams, the Doohans when he's playing, the Hugh Joneses, whatever, other than Hugh Jones being very quiet in this game. But what they love to do is they love to pull the ball back, they're all deep enough, they all have enough time on the ball, and then they will kind of charge up and they'll get to pretty much the game line. And it looks very nice.
And this is the other thing, you compare it to what you're saying about France, or you compare it to England in particular, they're using their forwards and wide channels as dummy runners to buy time for those backs, or allow them to get a weak shoulder and carry forward, right? So that there's always a threat on, even if there isn't space to go on and score. And yet, you look at those examples, not to keep harping on about the same 2 box kicks, but all the forwards around the ruck, all of them were within kind of 10, 15 metres, so they can either carry up or clear out the ruck. You've got no one on the width that's allowing you to pick an angle off or have someone there, have Jack Dempsey come in and hit an arc and kind of carry over the game line, pick a weak shoulder on Louis Liner, who's obviously, not the strongest boy in the world. So, not to criticise him, I'm sure his bench press is much better than mine, but you want to be getting those weak shoulders from their smaller players. And yet Scotland are just they've only got half a game plan.
Yeah.
Once again, not developed.
Here, this one isn't even off turnover ball.
Yeah.
They go for a wide play off first phase, they execute it well, get the ball out wide, they're over the gain line, and the forward pack don't have a clear instruction that they've been given in training that they've drilled 1,000 times of this is the line that we run, this is where we go, or we chill out, we wait for Finn to do something, or we play off Sione, we play off Tom Jordan, they will organise us, whatever. This is on second phase. Now, so Pierre Schoeman has to take the ball behind his back because he doesn't know what line he's meant to run in this scenario.
Yeah. Sometimes you can give some leeway for the fact it's their first game, they're back in camp, they've just changed things.
Big time.
But not when the coaching team's been together for 9 years.
Yeah.
With this group of players playing roughly the same game plan.
The forward pack's not drastically different from the autumn.
No. But yes, it's evolved, but they're playing the same strategy they did in the autumn. They're playing the same strategy they did the last Six Nations. Like, they haven't really changed much in the last year. They did a bit from the year before, but that's fine. They've had a year of all of these exact players, and yet none of them are getting into shape quickly enough. None of them are there. It means that Schumann's, overrunning this ball because he's not sure what line he's going. I think he thinks he's going to be a decoy. Then the ball comes just behind him and he has to catch it. And so you end up in this just like whole mess where Scotland didn't really look like scoring before the final play, where they're very deliberately sitting off. And we'll get onto that decision and that kind of passage of play later. But watching it once, you're like, oh, Scotland have finally woken up and finally playing. Watching it back a second time, you're like, actually, Italy are letting them play because they're so afraid of giving a penalty. Like, I think when up against an Italian team that was trying to force them into anything, Scotland just went side to side.
Yeah.
And whenever they weren't either within 10 metres of the line, where they are very good still, and they are pretty accurate, and yes, they had a lot of knock-ons because of the case of the game, but like, broadly, they were strong within that area.
That's what kept them in the game.
Yeah. Outside of that zone, which like 16 penalties if they gave away, like that's a decent chunk. You know, you can bite off ground, get into 22 there. If Italy kept the penalty count down, Scotland would not have been in this game. Because they're very good in the 22 and their kicking game was very strong, but there's nothing beyond that.
However, there's one part of this game that genuinely makes me quite sad to think about. And when you give away a penalty, it means, usually, depending where you are on the pitch, the opposition will kick to the sideline and that they have to then throw the ball into a line-out and win that ball. Please, put me out of my misery, talk to me about the line-out.
Oh, God, right, okay. So, the official stats, Scotland had 19 line-outs, they won 14, they lost 5. However, you can break that down further. There are 4 further balls where Scotland won the line-out, then lost it immediately. Fumbled it on the transfer. Or they dropped it after regathering it.
Throw a forward pass back to the hooker.
Yeah, they weren't 5 and then forward pass it back to the hooker because they were panicked into that. You then can take off a further 5 line-outs that were messy or sloppy ball. Where, yes, they win it, but this is like a horrible tap back where they're really like struggling to get it down to the 9, where they're only just scrambling past Zambonin, who was unbelievable for Italy in the air. At that point, you're taking off 9 of those 14 lineouts they won, and you're down to, realistically, 5 lineouts they can actually play off over the entire game.
In those 20-odd lineouts, if you asked Ben White and George Horn how many of these lineouts are you happy with, that stat would be incredibly low.
I think there's about 5, maybe 6. There's one that's like borderline that I kind of gave as like a sloppy one. But like, there's 5 or 6 lineouts where I think Scotland could reasonably play off them, right? Yeah. And I think they mauled 3 or 4 of those as well. So at that point, you've got very little ball to play off. Like, line-out ball is the best ball to attack off generally in most situations.
Yeah, because you can manipulate the numbers and play on your own
You have
terms.
control over it.
Yeah.
And you can play at the speed you want. You can keep the offside line as long as you want. You can work with that.
Yeah.
Scotland did not have that running. Like, that was a complete disaster. And a lot of the blame will go on Ewan Ashman, and I think some of that is deserved. However, an awful lot of it was clearly some sort of communication issue and breakdown. Like, so many times you're looking at the line out, and the issue there is the jumpers aren't getting into position quickly enough. The lifters aren't there. Or they're not doing, like, if you look at the video we did with George Cruz, right? The thing you referred to as max lift, where you want to make sure you're getting as high as you can and getting in the air. And they're only sort of getting like halfway up, like they're too far up on their legs in terms of the lift, so they're not getting high enough in the air. Or like you've got the jumper is lifting too late, like you've got a couple where Ashman threw in and no one was ready. Yeah. It feels a little bit like the thing it reminded me of was before the 23 World Cup, Wales went to Twickenham in a World Cup warm-up, and their line-out was atrocious. And after the game, Jonathan Humphreys, the forwards coach, came out and said, the reason it was terrible was we tried to change our calling system, right? That previously we just like would have someone shout everything, and we thought that's too easy for people to steal it. So instead we were trying to do it on like body language cues and so on, and we just like that was a disaster. It didn't work. We're never going to do that again. It felt like Scotland changed something because a few times you didn't see so much like the prop running and telling the hooker what the call was, and you didn't necessarily hear it on the ref mic whenever you're listening for it, whenever it was quiet, whenever you didn't have the commentators talking over the top of it, and so. I wonder whether they changed something in the system and that was a problem. There's a chance they just fix that next week and they just work out and they just go, okay,
you hope it's a one-off.
You hope it's that.
Because they've got John DL, who was the British and Irish Lions line-out coach. And, like, you can blame the conditions. Italy's line-out was fine.
Yeah.
They managed to catch the ball. Yeah. So, like, you can't really blame that. And you have moments like this one where both lifters, who were the two Ferguson brothers, coincidentally, are just late, and they just don't get the
Yeah.
man in time. And just there was clearly something just miscommunicated. As you say, like potentially Ashman might have put the ball in a little bit early on some of those, but he will only throw the ball in when he hears the word set or whatever.
Yeah, or whatever
word is.
cue it's going to be, even if it's an arm going in the air or something.
Yeah,
whatever
yeah.
the cue
So
is.
one thing that a lot of teams do is, for anyone who doesn't play rugby, is like it's called a yes/no call, where they will tell the hooker two potential calls before they start, and basically, if they say yes, then that's the call they go for. If they say no, then they've got the alternative that they kind of fall back on. And they basically do that. They load up two calls because the opposition they might change the way that they've loaded their defensive lineup.
Yeah.
So they might put their best defensive jumper, people like Peter O'Mahony in years gone by. If they go, right, O'Mahony's at the front, we want to instead go for a no call, which is like the fail-safe, the get-out call, and instead go to the back, just to avoid something like that. So it might be that Scotland have implemented something new into their line-out system in kind of pre-season, so to speak, and it's not worked. Whatever it was,
It was a complete disaster. Regardless.
They will be addressing that a lot at training this week.
They're going to have to. But they also need to address so many other areas of the game. If the scrum was completely on top, Italy did so much more in attack. Italy opened so much up. Their defence was excellent. We should talk about them.
Let's talk about
Italy.
Italy.
Brilliant
Yes.
on Saturday.
Very much that Italy were the protagonists of this game rather than Scotland being the antagonists. Yeah, they were outstanding. And I think weirdly where this game was won was what we were just saying about Scotland and the protocol in terms of turnover ball. Because, look, the conditions turned this game into a bit of a shit tip at times. You know, it was very difficult to catch the ball at the back. Major sympathies to both fullbacks in this game. I thought both of them came through pretty well with contestable kicks coming up.
Leonardo Marine is not a fullback by trade.
Yeah,
he's a 10 who can play 12 or 15.
Yeah,
brilliant job to be so secure on that and be so organised as well.
Yeah, and so obviously both teams went, right, let's pepper the opposition fullback because they're going to drop the ball. The difference is, if we drop it and it goes backwards, there's no advantage to be played there. If they drop it, there's a scrum to be played. Granted, Scotland didn't want scrums in the second half, but fine, whatever. However, when Italy won those balls back, they knew what they were going to do.
Yeah,
they had a
plan.
protocol. And the thing is, that protocol wasn't even the same every single time, but they clearly had a call that they all stuck to. I.e., sometimes it's just, we will just go one quick carry, we will recycle, and then we'll set off there. Just to buy us 2 seconds to set something in defence, to get them on the back foot so they're backpedaling. And sometimes it is just a case of like, feed Garbisi, he'll kick again, or he will throw a long ball, whatever it is. But every single time, there was none of that kind of clunkiness of people getting in each other's way.
Yeah.
There was clarity from the moment the ball went up in the air of, this is what we will do if we win this back.
And the best example of this is, of course, Tommaso Manicello's highly suitable try of the day. So this is wonderfully taken. This is a clear, planned move, and I think is incredibly smart. It's something about Gonzalo Quesada, is he loves the details.
Yeah.
You can tell that from the suits he wears. But like, this is a man who's into the tiny, finite details. And this is where this move comes alive. Like, it looks so improvised, and yet it isn't when you look at it. There's so many things that have to go right for this to work. And so they go really cleanly, ball at the front, off the top. They hit down to Zuliani, who is in as the insert, as the scrum half. So again, you see they've got no scrum halfway the line. If you're Scotland, you go, okay, they're going to maul it. So the pack here is expecting a maul. The back line are expecting a maul. They're like, fine, we know what's happening here. The scrum half's out of 10. This is going nowhere. Instead, bam, pass goes straight out. Fusco throws it straight to Canone, who just smashes over the ground. And then you have this setup, right? So the two centres, Menincello and Brex, go straight and over the top. They clean out. You've got none of this faffing our way with the forward to get in position. And that allows really clean, quick ball. No Scottish forwards got to cross again because they've called all the forwards into the line out. No jackal threats are about. Sione and Hugh Jones are not really jackal threats. So clean ball for Italy, and they can instantly, Fusco rolls it back and hangs a perfect kick in the air.
That's also the knock-on effect of Italy calling 5+1 line-out with Zuliani as that insert.
Yeah.
Because you naturally think here, 40 metres out from the try line, they're probably not going to maul, but they'll more likely bring it down, dummy maul, and then break away there.
Yeah.
So Scotland will leave their jackal threats around there. They will leave their heavy forwards in that area concentrated. So as you say, it makes this a quick ruck. And also, Fusco is physically closer to it.
Yeah.
He gives that pass and then he is straight in there. And the speed at which he gets his kick away is so, so important because you want Scotland to be backtracking.
Yeah. So you look at the Scottish backfield, they have two players back They're both working backwards into position. They're both still finding where they're going, obviously off the line out, not sure what they were going to go for, whether they're going to hang it straight in the air, whatever. Oh shit, no, they are hanging it almost straight in the air. This ball goes up, Paolo Garbisi drops back into the backfield in case Scotland regather it, so there's someone covering there. Likewise, Leonardo Marine, the two main playmakers, which means they're at the game, the two centres are on the floor, but chasing comes Louis Liner, who regathers brilliantly. It's a really good kick. It's positioned perfectly so that Liner is kind of always coming forward. He's able to like really attack the ball and take it himself.
Outstanding
like,
take.
Come onto it and then regather and roll and present it back. Like the kick allows, and Liner's timing onto the ball allows him to still be moving forward as he regathers it, which makes it so much easier to roll and present. Like he's got momentum coming forward, meaning he can just go straight to ground, bam, put it down and get it ready to go. Now, the forwards from the line-out have split into two kind of groups. Half of them go into this ruck and make sure the ball's secure, make sure the ball's fast. And the other half, so you've got Michele Lamero, who was previously in the lifting pod that won the line-out, and Daniele Fischetti, who was at the tail of the line-out. They both, way before the kick's even in, start working out the foul touchline, and before Liner's even won the ball, they are getting into position on the short side. Now, because they've had to gamble on Scotland might win this ball, so we need to make sure we've got two kickers in the backfield to cover this. They need to leave the playmaking to someone else. And this is something we see similarly in the first try, right? Brex comes in as the playmaker on this side, which leads to Scotland going, okay, he's the only back who's available here. He's the only back who's about. It's going to go through Brex. If they're going this way, it's going to be Brex. If not, it's going to be a crash up on that side because they've got a forward pod setting. They've got Lamero and Fischetti getting there. Canone's just getting back up to his feet after carrying. That's fine. They're only looking at that. However, last second, Menoncello, who was previously in that ruck, having cleaned out on Canone, works right around to the touchline. And he runs this lovely arcing line outside, nowhere near anyone's eye line.
Really
like,
subtle. You
You can't see him at all. And he's Tommaso Menoncello. Like, you can normally spot him. He's a big lad. And yet, he gets out of that touchline having hidden himself perfectly. So, like, I think even probably, you know, you've got Steyn out on that touchline. I don't know if he notices Menoncello until the last second.
But more importantly, from Steyn's perspective, is there is a man who flashes into his eye line opaquely at the last moment. So you mentioned Garbisi dropped into the backfield there as a fail-safe beforehand, as did Monty Ioane, the left winger. And he comes sprinting up. He absolutely flies into the line and really sells that he wants this ball from Lamero. And obviously, if you're Kyle Steyn, you know, you've prepped on Monty Ioane all week, and he's the sort of player you don't want to give an inch because he can stand people up. You know, he takes on defenders all the time. And so Kyle Steyn has to mark him. Otherwise, there's a chance he could go through and finish it. He wants to leave the flanker to have to throw a ball over the top, which not many forwards can do.
Yeah. But Lamero is a professional player. He's an incredibly skillful player. And he has had a full week probably working on this move, right?
Yeah.
And going, what we want is you throwing this very specific flat ball so that Menoncello can take it at full pelt.
Proper
We want
goody
him
shit from
sprinting
Lamero.
onto it. It is. Like, and I think if this was more improvised, he's probably trying to throw it to it like he's putting a windier pass on it. Instead, it's flat, it's over the top. It's like almost not spinning, like, and it just lands and falls into his lap.
Absolute
it's
seed.
A perfect pass. Like, very few tens are throwing that off the cuff as well as he is. And yet, lands in Menoncello's lap. If he is not coming onto that as well at full pelt, he's probably tackled and he's probably stopped short. But as it is, no one is getting close. He goes over and scores what is a very highly suitable try of the day, which was something we once put in Moments of the Year. It was an Italian commentary, once described, an Italian commentator commentating in English, called it Thomas Menoncello try, a highly suitable try of the day. We'll put that at the end of the video.
It was indeed.
It's one of my favourite clips.
Yes. And of course, this also came off the back of Italy's previous try, scored by Lewis Liner. And once again, this was a perfectly called three-phase set move. So interestingly, Lewis Liner, who scored this, was interviewed after the game, and he said about this, like, we've practiced this all week, and we knew there were a few options that might happen, and the one that we went for, it, you know, ended up like landing perfectly into our laps. So Italy, once again, strike play off a line out. And again, I really like the starter play of this. They get the ball nice and wide to Garbisi as the kind of second receiver off Fusco. And he runs a little switch play inside to Tommaso Menoncello. Again, that is such an easy way of just cheaply just guaranteeing you're on the front foot. So that's phase one of this move. The second phase is quite interesting. So they have Nicotera runs just a really obvious, like, short ball. He's not going to get the ball, but once again, they have to mark him, you know, otherwise he's just going to go straight through. Nicotera, just as like a visual distraction more than anything, overruns the ball, and instead they get Canone to carry the ball. Gets pretty much onto the gain line. And then there are a few details here. Both Leonardo Marin and Nacho Brex really sell with their body language that they don't want the ball, as they point to the left-hand side.
Brex and Marine are both pointing this way, and you can see two things, right? One, Kyle Stain in the background here. Kyle Stain is the only player in the Scottish backfield at this point, right? And he is looking at Brex going, this way, lads. We're going that way. We're going over there. We're going over there, we are. And so Garbisi, he really sells this, right? He did a lot of theatre as a kid. And so he knows how to sell. I'm going to do a little step this way, then look like I'm changing my mind. You know.
Oh,
like
I'm
he's filming an
improvising
advert
right
or
now.
something. Yeah, like it's very much like, no, I think I'll go over here. And
That's not a good point,
there.
Nacho.
Yeah.
There is space over there.
There is more space over there than this side when no one is defending. And so Garbisi flashes that side, and Hugh Jones is watching Garbisi. As you want to do. You want to watch the 10, you want to make sure you're tracking what their decision is. So Hugh Jones then sees this, sees Breck's point, sees Garbisi go, and he goes, cool, I'll work in field. I'll work over there. I'll step inwards. At which point, Brex, who's been sort of pretty much behind the ruck, moves slightly outwards and gets onto Hugh Jones' outside. And this buys him a critical second.
Yes. The other key detail of this, if you trip with that ball, is the detail of Alessandro Fusco at the bottom of that ruck. So it's something that Jameson Gibson Park is very, very good at. He did it on the Lions tour as well. And basically, we talked about this in the video a couple of days ago, in fact, about the fact that if you've got a midfield ruck and you're looking to attack one way, it is very difficult as a defence to bring both sides up with your line speed. And so, because Italy have so well sold that they're going to the left-hand side, Alessandro Fusco, just looking to the left, he literally doesn't glance to the right once.
The way Garbisi has gone.
Yes. So obviously he's got a loaded forward pod there. Their fly half is attacking that way. It's really easily sold. He lifts it, looks that way, and then he scoots to the right-hand side.
And he doesn't look that way. He knows where Brex is. He knows where Brex is going to be.
Because they've pre-planned this.
Because they know this is a plan.
So the important part of this isn't, in fact, the defenders around the ruck. The important part is Ben White, who is stood on the opposite wing. And at this point, he's got men in front of him. He's got Ioane in front of him. He's got Canone, Lorenzo, I think it is, in front of him. An edge forward on the wing who's wanting a cross kick. Realistically, he doesn't, but White has to mark this. So he can't then drop into the backfield to help out Kyle Stain in the backfield, who's completely on his own. Tom Jordan has come up. He's seen the lines a bit short. He's seen Lewis Liner needs marking. You can't give him one-on-ones.
He's correct to come in here, right?
Yes.
This is a difficult situation. He's got to mark it. If he doesn't come up here, the pass goes across to Lewis Liner and he can get pass inside.
Yes. And so Fusco just goes, brilliant, bring up your line speed on this side. Let these lads sit off.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happens. He scoots to the right-hand side, hits it to Brex. Because it's not Garbisi, they're not immediately having panic stations of, oh, Brex is going to perfectly ping the ball into whatever space there is. Of course they should, because we've all seen what Brex does in the Six Nations these days. Brex puts in an absolutely perfect grub here. This is an outstanding kick. And that's the great thing about Brex is to the untrained eye, he is this fat lump who gets you over the gain line. But in fact, his kicking skills and passing skills off both hands and both feet are perfect.
They're great.
He is such a skillful player, and he can act as that extra fly half, and they use that so subtly here. You look at Brex and you're like, oh, he's just going to run it in a straight line and get walloped by Hugh Jones, isn't he? He puts in a brilliant kick here, and Liner finishes it perfectly.
The reason you have to harp on about all these little details is they are why the try is scored.
Yeah.
So it is them going in field, at least Kyle Stain second-guessing himself. He's starting to work out towards the touchline. And then he sees Garbisi flash, he looks at Brex pointing, and he goes, oh, actually, and changes his mind and stays in field. So he doesn't work over there.
Stain's pretty much still under the sticks at this point because he thinks Garbisi's getting the ball. He could prod it in behind to me. I can call the mark.
Yeah. And if he does go cross field back the same way or flashes back, whatever, I've got time to get there, or Tom Jordan can drop back because he hasn't got there yet. He doesn't see this one choice happening because everything in the Italian player's body language says no. So, yes, you can say it's risky that Scotland are only playing a one-player backfield, and yet all of this is created by these little subtleties in the Italian game to strip the backfield back as much as possible. And then Hugh Jones here, because he buys it, because he falls for it again, it buys Brex the second he needs to put that kick in, right? Because he needs Tom Jordan to come up into the main line. If Hugh Jones puts more pressure on him, Brex has to put this kick in a second earlier, and it means Tom Jordan has time to turn back and see that. Instead, Brex wants the ball in his hand as long as possible, so by running this outside arcing line, by getting on the outside of Hugh Jones, it means Jones has to hurry to get up with him.
Yeah. He has to drift.
Yeah.
If he shoots up, he's missing the tackle because he's not lined up with him.
Jordan, in turn, comes up going, okay, if he pulls this wide, then Liner's got a bit of a game line carry here, so I'm going to come up on liner, and that creates the space in behind. It's those little manipulation of two players who are nowhere near the ball, as you say, then Ben White as well on the far touchline, means that space opens up on the other side of the pitch. Like
Steyn has to be on his own here. All of the other potential members of the Scottish backfield have a reason for not joining him, if you know what I mean. They've got an excuse of, I had to mark him. Sorry.
Yeah. So, it looks like really shit Scottish defence, but, there's so much athlete. This is, something I really love about rugby, right? Is something is happening across every inch of this pitch to create that bit of space there.
Yeah.
To create those 15
It's just great attack coaching, all round
really
by
good
Quesada.
attack detail by Quesada and Jermaine Fernandez, I think is attack skills coach. Really good detail, really well thought out, really good working out how the Scottish pendulum works, because they are more of a classical pendulum than the kind of that two-person fly off dipping in and out of the line thing that a lot of teams run. They use Finn in the backfield less, especially when they're in the opposition 22, because he's a good tackler, or they're in their own 22 rather. Really, really smart by Italy, and they took their two chances
acting
really
as well. By the way, by all the back line trying to sell that's going back to the open side.
Theatre kid Paolo Garbisi coming back out for us.
Giving the lads lessons when they do the unit split.
Yeah.
Forwards are going to focus on mauls. We're going to do a little bit of acting shocks when the ball goes to the right.
Yeah. We're going to pull out the skull and you're like, oh God, here he goes. To be or not to be, is it, Paolo? Better to suffer the slings and arrows. So Italy just incredibly impressive. Took their two tries incredibly well, got off to a lead, began to believe, and then the final quarter, I thought Garbisi was outstanding.
Yeah.
And
this little chip into the corner that he did was just a really mature bit of game management, knowing that the Scottish line-out, isn't great, so there is a chance that you can steal this back, get penalties off that, and just drill them into the corner.
Beyond that as well, right? They know that Scotland have an incredibly dangerous team. They have Darcy Graham, they have Hugh Jones, they have Finn Russell, for God's sake, all on the pitch at once. Yeah, all of those are on the pitch at once, right?
Even Jack Dempsey, as we spoke.
If you give them 10 chances, they will take at least one and that'll win them the game, right? So if you do that little kick, you mean one, right? They're more likely to kick that ball from that position, meaning that you're reducing one of the chances there. But also, it eats 40 seconds off the clock. You need to give them as few chances in as far out positions as possible. And they almost create the try from their own try line from that, obviously they win a couple of penalties along the way to get them up there, but they almost played out there. They almost did that. It shows the danger of this team. You've got to give them as few chances as possible. You've got to play the numbers, got to play the math side of this, got to play the clock as much as the opposition team. And Garbisi did that brilliantly. I can't praise enough how good he was. Fusco, I thought, had maybe his best game for Italy in Italian jersey.
Yeah.
And I thought Garbisi Jr. as well, Alessandro, also came on, added so much energy in defence as well.
Yeah.
Then that final defensive stand, Italy made a decision. I don't mind, where they would just got rid of our line speed and they're we're just going to soak up, and we're going to wait for Scotland to make an error.
I can see why you say that, because obviously discipline is a big thing. But sometimes it'd be the case that even after Scotland have passed the ball, they're still not coming off the line.
That's it.
At that point, there's no longer offside line.
I also think once they get to the 22 as well, they've got to start chanting their arm a little bit.
Because they gave up 25 very easy metres on that.
Yeah.
And when, again, there's carriers like Jack Dempsey, mainly Jack Dempsey, but also the likes of Sione Tuipulotu, who then
burst into life in the last minute.
And it's oh mate, you're still here. And again, Sione's one of my favourite players, but I found I didn't see as much of him in this game. Scotland just didn't get him into the game nearly as much as they usually do.
Italy instead went really hard at the breakdown and just went, we're going to try and win jackals here.
Danilo Fischetti just re-emerging on the pitch.
So this is an interesting one. So Mirko Spagnuolo had come on for Danilo Fischetti sometime out, did a great job at the scrum, really good. Fischetti is brilliant jackler, better around the park, higher work rate, but Spagnuolo's a better scrummager, right?
Yeah.
So they brought him on, they targeted the scrum, they won a couple of penalties there. And then, I would have kicked the points personally, that last one, but that's beside the point. And then, Spagnuolo doesn't make a tackle for 10 minutes. The last 10 minutes on the pitch, he doesn't make a tackle.
Hit a ruck.
He hits one ruck, and he is involved in a nudge off on one other player, right?
Yeah.
There are two moments of physical contact that aren't a ruck or a
pushes
scrum
in
or
a maul a little bit.
Yeah, he has a couple of scrums, he had a couple of mauls that he's involved in. There's no contact on his head. And then, in the final play, the referee goes, we've had a HIA for 17. So Italy have, I think quite clearly, probably feigned a head injury to Spagnuolo to get a better jackler in Fischetti on the pitch, to cover more ground, to look for that jackal
He's re-energised.
He's had 20 minutes rest.
Fischetti's first impact when he's back on the pitch is he does a really good counter ruck here and gets in the passing channel of George Horn. George Horn isn't coy and doesn't like throw the ball at him, Thomas Williams style.
O'Keefe warned him about 3 or 4 times, going, get out of there, I will penalise you, but he doesn't penalise him.
But he slows the ball down by a second, which when you're not coming off the line is crucial, in terms of re-energising people, in terms of getting dominant shots on next phase.
Knows O'Keefe likes to give players a chance to roll out of there, to get out of there. He also knows it's the last place where all referees are more cautious about giving any penalty.
Yeah.
So really smart. And then the eventual winning tackle. We have mentioned Nicola Conone. I thought he was unbelievable. I thought it was one of his best games I've seen him play. Just absolutely everywhere. And likewise, Zambonin, I thought was brilliant, so good in the air.
Any of that Italian front five could have got player of the match in this. All of them would have been equally
one of his best games in a while as well. Ziliani's great always. The other Canone is great. But for me, Nicola Canone was player of the match. I thought he was just absolutely everywhere.
He was phenomenal.
And then so fitting it was him in that final moment. And the thing is, Nicola Canone is a man who was born to be a Roman gladiator who dies in battle, And I think he sees a day like that where it's muddy and it's squelching, he's fighting for his country, and he goes close enough, And so when he gets that moment, and it's a brilliant hit by Hasa, who gets in on the ball, and there's a moment's collision where Max Williamson is stood up a little bit and kind of stumbles, and the speed with which Canone goes, oh, this can be a choke tackle. He changes from he's going in high on him to suddenly I'm going to hold him up. From I'm just trying to stop his momentum.
It's incredibly brave tackle choice by Italy as well. Because usually when you go for a 2-man shot, you like to go one high, one low. So you've got all options covered. One of them to guarantee to get to the floor, the other one to wrap up the ball. Instead, Italy risk it and go too high here. They have one going for kind of the big shots to take the sting out of him, and the other one just targeting the ball. Max Williamson actually does a decent job. Looks like he's about to get the ball free. He really kind of tries to work the floor, but before getting on the floor. But you know what I mean? Tries to work the ball back. But Canone, just goalkeeper wise, is just kind of makes himself big as possible. Has that really big chest, and just gets his arms wrapped around the ball.
He's leaning back like he's doing a trust fall with him. He's just making sure all his weight is in there and he's staying up. And obviously then bursts into tears the moment the scrum's given.
It's the moment of just sheer technical brilliance that just capped off, it summed up the game for Canone for me. That obviously he was stealing the Scottish line out all day long. He was a real thorn on the side of the breakdown.
Picked up a jackal.
Carried the ball
everything,
really hard.
Hit his own rucks.
Was
just monster gladiator everywhere.
A complete second row performance. But as I say, any of that front five, Simone Ferrari got player of the match in the end, which I was really here for.
Yeah, I love it.
Fischetti, I think, again, he kind of gets the praise a little bit more than Ferrari a lot. But yeah,
Zambonin also nominated.
Zambonin and Nicotero, both absolutely outstanding. Just incredible. Yeah, an incredible performance by Italy, and delighted
really
for them.
They were so good.
Yeah, that they closed it out because, there was a bit of squeaky bum time that Scotland... And look, as I say, I think any Scotland fan would have said that they wouldn't have deserved to win that game if they did. But, fair play to Italy. That look, there were times where you felt oh no, they're going to do the classic Italy thing and throw it away, aren't they? But this time on the 79th minute rather than
there was something different
50th.
About it as well. There was much smarter game management. There was no actual implosions.
They didn't give Scotland a ticket to the lottery,
No.
Which, as we say, when they got 5 minutes from the try line, they have enough good players that they can just score. They can go that last push,
We're used to Italy in that situation in years gone by, imploding and having a brain fart under pressure, and there was none of that. It was, as a game they've learned to win over the course of 5 years, and they really, really delivered in the moment.
Yeah. So fair play Casada, fair play Lamoureux, fair play to that team. I think they're really building something special there, and it just excites me because I feel they, and as much as I'm not saying this off the back of that performance, but they can go to toe with the other 4 nations in this tournament, and I'm really, really excited to see how it goes. As it goes,
4,
Wales, obviously they will beat, but the 3 big dogs, Ireland, France, England, I'm really excited to see how they go against those teams. Because we could see some real test matches here.
If that Ireland game was in Rome, I'd be slightly nervous. I'd be slightly worried if I was an Irish fan. I am not, so I'd be very excited from an Italian point of view. Hopefully they can still put up a fight in Dublin, because that has been the case over the last few years, right? Is they're doing this in Rome? Are they doing it away from home? Can they go the entire tournament without having one game where they implode and just concede 60 points out of nowhere? That'll be the next target for them. Is they've got to win under the belt. They're going to target one in Cardiff. Can they in the middle remain at least consistent against these 3 teams?
Yeah,
it's exciting. I'm so excited about this Italy team, man. Like, I'm so excited by watching them. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited by
by
Brex.
So excited by Brex. Is he the best player in the world?
Yeah, I mean, I said he was going to do a header. I didn't think an inch perfect grubber to set the try straight
I said an
away.
inch perfect cross kick, so I think that's pretty close.
Yeah, that's pretty good. All right, advantage Robbie.
What's Brex going to do next?
Header.
I think have a relaxing week having earned it and then put in an excellent victory against Ireland.
Go off, King.
Does he have the pace? Yes, he does. And Tommaso Menoncello score. What is a highly suitable try of the day.